What you got?
No, I was just going to say, it's funny that we're talking about all the success, but I mean, today, I think we're headed into an interesting direction. And that's that I think the next step that a lot of people need to take as we're now in February moving forward is I think some people need to do some quitting. I mean, that's what I think we need to talk about today is for some of you out there, the way you can achieve more is to hurry up and quit.
What? So I know, wind up. I know Dr. J. I know he's got something on his mind here. So Dr. J, we've been working so hard. Why would we quit?
Seth Godin wrote a book, and I'll see if I can get it on the resource page, but he wrote a book called The Dip. And Seth Godin is a master marketer. And this is what Seth Godin noticed. He said that what happens is a lot of people, they have an idea, they have a product, they want to market it, they get to a place, so they reach a point and they realize that they're about to hit a wall and take a dip, so they just quit. Basically what happens though in the dip is imagine you're building, you've got this idea, and then suddenly it tips down. And right on the other side of the dip though, because you got to think when you start to fail and things get bad, you get all your energy, you get 100% focused on it. And then in that moment, that knowledge being down in that pit is what pivots you and suddenly slingshots your success over the mountain, because it's what you learn down in the pit that makes things successful. But there is a danger, and that is that if you take the dip and you go down in the dip in too many things, you never get that focus. And so nothing ever gets slingshotted. It's just everything in your life is in a pit. And so the way you reach through the dip to get slingshotted for your success is you got to quit all the things that don't matter. And so, Chef, I'd like to have a conversation today about multitasking, because our generation was lied to. We were told that success happens when we multitask and do lots of things simultaneously. I mean, in your industry, in education, we always talk about multitasking, and I've read some science on this, and that's just not true. What about your industry, Chef?
So especially in the sales side of things now, I'm constantly in that world of multitasking. At any point in time, I could be doing a culinary demo while reaching over and trying to answer text messages in my, in the consulting role that I do for the company. And then as soon as I can get done with all of that, then I'm also trying to answer emails that I've missed while I'm doing the other two. And then it's, I've got to go meet this person, go do that person and sell this product, and this item's going out of inventory. Is just this constant spin. And so from 8 in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon is one big giant multitasking cluster. You know what?
I hear you. And, multitask, and for those that don't know, I mean, just in case, multitask is the art of doing multiple tasks simultaneously. It's not that you're trying to do 5 things and you do each thing on its own. It's like multitask is when you're trying to do a bunch of stuff simultaneously. And to be fair, it can be effective in some situations. But overall, the studies are pretty clear that it actually leads to decreased efficiency and productivity. In fact, research has showed that when tasks are simple and routine, multitasking can be beneficial. But what we're talking about here on the Brodacious Life is doing big goals and big things. And when you look at the science of big things, it says that when tasks are complex and require our full attention and cognitive effort, in other words, like Seth Godin, when we want to be slingshotted on a big goal, unfortunately, it can lead to decreased performance. And here's the big one: increased stress levels. And additionally, switching back and forth between tasks can lead to this thing called switch cost. And I don't know if you heard about it, because I didn't.
No, I've never heard of switch cost
before. I actually have felt it, Chef. I just didn't know what the name of it was until I was preparing for today's show. But that's like where time and effort is lost transitioning between tasks, because you're trying to do so much. There's a transition between back and forth. And so in other words, you have a cost, you have a lost bit of time. And so in the long run, sometimes it's better to do one task at a time than multitask all the time. So multitasking is not what people think it is. And I think a lot of us this year, if we can get focused and let some stuff go, in other words, we need to quit the things that don't matter and get focused, I think that we're going to have a better year this year.
So go through me real quick on those. What's the negative impact of doing all this multitasking? You mentioned a few. Let's kind of break them down just for a minute.
Yeah, I found
down the top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I found 5 things. And if you're watching the YouTube, you're always like, what's he scrolling to? Like every time Chef and I put together a show, we try, it's really just 2 dudes talking that are in the journey with you, but we try to bring facts because God knows the world is full of some fake news. We're not going there, no stress. But, we try to do our homework on this. And so I did some homework, and these are the 5 things that I found based on research that was negative. Number 1 is actually decreased productivity. Multitasking can lead to decreased performance and productivity because the brain has to switch back and forth from task, which leads to lost time in the transition, like we just talked about. And so that's the first one, is actually decreased productivity. The second one is, we talked about a little bit, it's increased stress. Multitasking, I feel that. I feel overloaded.
It is literally like juggling, and you just keep adding a ball into the mix, which I can only do 2 at a time, BTW. And if you're juggling, the more you add in, the higher your stress is. And there's a certain amount of, you can't, and if you throw them all up in the air, there's no way you can catch all of them. It's just this inevitability that you're going to drop the ball in one of those 8 items that you're trying to navigate.
Absolutely. An example at my work before we move on is I figured out, and I had to out of necessity, because when B ended up in the hospital with preeclampsia with a baby, my life got overloaded quickly. So I had to figure out some things to let go so that I could still maintain the job and take care of her or go to and from the hospital. So one of the things that I let go is I quit trying to reply to emails so dang fast. And here's what I discovered. Number 1, whatever's usually now I still reply to emergency emails quickly, but generally 90% of those emails, trying to reply within 2 hours, it encourages a sense of urgency from the person at the other end, because now they think they've got you even on your non-work hours. And then also, here's what I discovered. I was replying to emails so fast that I wasn't giving quality replies to emails.
Yes.
And so by not multitasking, I now have a time set aside in my day where I will sit down and I reply to emails, as many as I can within that hour. My goal now is I do not let any email go without a reply for more than 3 days. But I've discovered that I'm giving better quality emails, and my clients seem to like that better. Now, again, the exception being if somebody opens it up and they're like, I've got this property now, I have this problem now, then that's different. But generally, 90% of emails aren't like that. So, but yeah, I can give you my third. Yeah. Here's a third reason why multitasking is bad. And we haven't talked about this level, but it's decreased creativity. I mean, multitasking can hinder creativity and critical thinking, as it doesn't allow for sufficient time to process information, analyze data, and generate new ideas. I will tell you, Chef, and I'd be interested if this is true for you, because in education, we work 10 months hard, and there's about 2 months in there we don't. But I find from a creative standpoint, I am more creative in that 2-month period because I don't have all the stresses going on. So I know when I'm in periods of multitasking, my creativity, which leads to profitability, is extremely low. What about you and your creativity?
So I find that my best time for me to create content is on the weekends. And that's just kind of where I'm at. During the week, generally speaking, I'm kind of all over the road. I can be in Biloxi, and the next day I'm in Shreveport. The day after that, I could be in Memphis. So it's one of those things where it's really hard for me to switch the flip when I have all of this change constantly happening. And again, I could not arrive to the hotel where I'm staying at until 7 o'clock at night because I've been on the road, even later. So then I still got to answer all my emails, dial up, finish up anything that I got to get done, or do all my reporting and all those things I've got to get done. It's just, I don't have the mindset to be creative. And what happens is I get spurts of that creativity around me, and I don't want to lose that creativity spurt. So what I do is I just keep a flip folder near me. I write down that moment of creativity, or I tell Siri, if I'm in the car, I tell Siri to make a note, and it'll just kind of jot it down, and then I'll come back to it and work on that. I don't sit there in that moment and try to do it because I know I can't give it my full attention. So I'm trying to be good about writing it down and then coming back to it when I have that time to be creative and to really focus on it.
Yeah, and the skill that you just gave with writing it down really plays into the fourth one, which is decreased memory retention.
Yeah.
You know, like when we're multitasking, people think, well, if I just do more, but actually you can do more. Maybe you do more poorly based on the research, but you actually forget more because it can lead to decreased memory retention as it requires the brain to continue to switch focus, which reduces the time available for a long-term memory consolidation. When I was working on my doctorate degree, I did an extensive amount of research on schema theory, which talks about how we remember things, of how our brain will remember something based on associations. But when you're multitasking, you're not forming all the associations with various different things in the environment because you're moving so quickly. Therefore, you have less time to remember. And I will tell you that thing, I keep Dr. Aaron Corley was an assistant principal I once had, and I took an education like leadership thing, and he was a mentor to me. And he pulled out his little spiral bound little notebook that fit in his back pocket, and he just took notes. And I asked him, I said, why you take notes? He goes, because you can never remember everything. So I just take notes. And when I have ideas, I jot ideas down, and it helps me to stay focused. And it's, to-do lists and everything else. But he said it wasn't to do more. It was to take the things that he was doing and be very specific and defined about that. So I think it's so cool that you just mentioned that, because that's totally plays in.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's too complicated to possibly remember everything. I feel like some of the best ideas come to me at the most random of times. And that's been through, whether that's the creation of a plate, like I was really working through one time on a chicken and waffle dish. I needed a signature chicken and waffle dish for this 5-diamond hotel. I want to do something that was so Mississippian that it would be iconic. And I'm very thankful that even a year and a half later, it's still there on the menu. But I had a thought. I was in the middle of the process of literally being on the line. And again, it was, hey, Siri, blah, 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 buttermilk. It was a buttermilk, sweet potato waffle with a hot fried chicken, Tabasco honey, cinnamon, sugar, butter, apples, whipped cream, powdered sugar, orange garnish. And that, it's so good. It's spicy. It's sweet. It's crunchy. It's savory. It's umami, as people like to say. That's the sixth flavor that nobody talks about. And it's great. It's a great dish. It's still on the menu over there. Really proud of it. There's been lots of different competitors to that, but that's still the king of the crop as far as I'm concerned, even if I'm not the chef there anymore.
I will say, when you owned the Classic Cafe, that restaurant, your chicken and waffles was actually my favorite thing on the menu. So, for all of our listeners, the chef's chicken and waffles are the real deal. But I digress. Hey, our fifth one, I'll throw this out there for you, is increased errors. And I think everybody kind of knows this, that if you're trying to do everything, if you're trying to do a million things, you do not a single thing well. And so, yeah. I mean, and with that in mind, I think that we have to get down to the title of this episode. And people are like, what do you mean quit? People talk about silent quitting and being a quitter, but sometimes being a quitter is good. I mean, if you're not prepared to go all the way, you should quit all the things that don't get you to all the tasks that don't get you to the place, so that you can focus in on the things that are going to take you to the destination. And by the way, something Seth Godin talks about in that book is the winners, the Fortune 500 businesses that build it, are the ones that don't run away from the dip. When they see the dip coming, they're running towards it, because they know just on the other side of that dip is the slingshot up to the top. So they're running, after they've let go, they run full-fledged lion charge, king of the jungle, right towards the issue. The one thing I'll say is, which kind of gets us into our next thing that we can talk about, is don't run to 5 things at one time, because if you're trying to run forward while looking to the side, or running this way while looking this way, I mean, that's that's when bad things happen. If a lion is chasing a gazelle and that gazelle's looking around, that lion's going to eat that gazelle. The only way that gazelle escapes that lion is eyes forward, run, 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 and run in one singular direction with all you got and all your might. And we humans have to do the exact same thing. So for you, Chef, me, man, I think the key is we got to become quitters and run towards the only things that matter.